He was the only German field marshal whose name still echoes in military colleges around the world. A tactical genius, revered even by his enemies. The Desert Fox, Erwin Rommel, a chivalrous tank commander who often outmaneuvered the British at their own game. It sounds like the stuff of legend, doesn't it? And yet, on a crisp, gray October afternoon in 1944, that very same legend sat at his kitchen table. Uniform pressed, medals gleaming. Two of Hitler's grim-faced envoys placed a cyanide capsule on the wood and gave him 10 minutes to choose his fate. It's a chilling image, a stark contrast to the triumphant hero of earlier years. So today we ask the question no one dared in 1940. Why did Hitler's most celebrated general, the poster boy of the Wehrmacht, end up plotting to bring down the Führer he once loyally served? This isn't simple heroism or villainy. It's a twisting tale of ambition, disillusionment, and a desperate last-ditch effort to save a nation. Rommel's rise was, quite frankly, pure propaganda gold for the Nazi regime. Imagine a middle-class Swabian, not born into aristocratic military lineage, yet who fought with astonishing gallantry in the Great War, earning the coveted Pour le Mérite, Germany's highest military honor for his daring actions. This wasn't some stuffy general, this was a man who led from the front, often personally scouting enemy positions under fire. He rocketed to fame leading Hitler's bodyguard regiment through the lightning-fast Polish and French campaigns, showcasing a revolutionary approach to armored warfare. Then he carried those audacious Blitzkrieg tactics into the North African desert, turning it into his personal chessboard. A master of deception and rapid movement, he often appeared where the Allies least expected him, sowing chaos and fear. By late 1942, newspapers on both sides of the conflict were calling him the last knight of war, a soldier who fought cleanly and respected his opponents. Hitler absolutely loved the photo ops. Rommel in the sand, goggles around his neck, looking every inch the dashing, fearless pirate. He was the perfect embodiment of the clean soldier myth the Nazis desperately wanted to propagate. The German public needed a winner, a symbol of hope amid the brutal realities of war. And the Führer put all his chips on the Desert Fox. Rommel, for his part, was a professional soldier, not a party man. He saw himself as serving Germany, not necessarily the Nazi ideology, a distinction that would become profoundly important later on. This image of the apolitical, brilliant commander was carefully cultivated, both by Nazi propaganda and, ironically, later by the Allies themselves, who found it useful to have a good German general to contrast with the regime's atrocities. But war, as we all know, isn't Hollywood. The sands of North Africa, once the stage for Rommel's triumphs, soon turned into a quagmire. The pivotal Battle of El Alamein in late 1942 bled Rommel's vaunted Afrika Korps white, a strategic defeat from which they would never truly recover. Then American tanks poured in through Morocco and Algeria during Operation Torch, squeezing Rommel's forces from two sides. The logistical nightmare of supplying his troops across the Mediterranean became insurmountable, and he constantly found his pleas for reinforcements and supplies ignored or dismissed by Hitler. By May 1943, the last German soldier limped off the continent, defeated and demoralized. Rommel himself flew back to Germany with a skull fracture, a grim souvenir from a British air attack, and a crushing realization. The Reich was losing, and losing everywhere. He saw the writing on the wall, something Hitler, blinded by his own megalomania, refused to acknowledge. From his hospital bed recovering from his injuries, Rommel wrote blistering memos predicting with chilling accuracy the inevitable Allied invasion of France. He argued for a flexible defense, a mobile reserve, understanding that the Atlantic Wall as it stood was a static target waiting to be breached. Hitler, however, waved them off with typical arrogance. Hold the Atlantic Wall and fight to the last man. Rommel, staring at the maps, the vast, vulnerable coastline, reportedly muttered softly, "That's suicide, not strategy." His frustration mounted, his respect for the Führer's military judgment eroding with every unrealistic command. He was a master tactician, and he knew a lost cause when he saw one. Beyond the strategic blunders, something far more sinister began to shake Rommel to his core. What truly appalled and disturbed him were the whispers from the east. Staff officers returning from the Eastern Front spoke of unimaginable horrors. Mass shootings of women and children herded into ditches and executed en masse, of entire villages wiped out. These weren't acts of war, they were barbarism. Rommel was no Democrat, certainly not in the modern sense. He was a product of his time, a German nationalist and a career soldier. But the systematic extermination of civilians, the sheer brutality, appalled his deeply ingrained soldier's sense of honor. He believed in fighting a war, even a brutal one, with a certain code, a certain respect for human life outside the battlefield. The atrocities he heard about were a direct affront to everything he understood about military conduct and decency. In March 1944, he confided in his son, Manfred, a conversation that must have weighed heavily on him. "This isn't the Germany we fought for in 1918, he told him, his voice likely heavy with despair. "If Hitler drags us to the bottom, the nation will drown with him." The implication was clear, stark, and terrifyingly dangerous. The Führer had to go. This was no longer about winning the war. It was about saving Germany from utter annihilation and moral degradation. His loyalty once to the leader had shifted irrevocably to the nation itself. And in that shift, he saw Hitler for what he truly was, Germany's greatest threat. By early 1944, the anti-Hitler circle within the German military and aristocracy knew they were running out of time. They understood that to give their desperate coup legitimacy, they needed a big name, someone with immense public prestige and military authority. Rommel fit the bill perfectly. He brought not just star power, but crucially direct access to the troops defending occupied France, the very forces that would be vital in any attempt to seize power. His growing disillusionment and increasingly outspoken criticism of Hitler made him a natural, albeit cautious, ally for the conspirators. Between April and July 1944, Rommel attended at least 3 clandestine meetings near Paris with figures like Karl Heinrich von Stulpnagel and Caesar von Hoffacker, key players in the resistance movement. These weren't casual chats. They were high-stakes discussions about the future of Germany. Documents discovered as recently as 2018 have shed new light on Rommel's deep involvement, revealing his decisive determination and clear approval of the plans to remove Hitler. He was present when the audacious plan was laid out. Arrest Hitler, present him before a national tribunal, perhaps in a neutral country, and then negotiate a swift peace with the Allies within 48 hours. The conspirators desperately hoped a post-Hitler Germany could secure better terms and avoid total destruction. Did Rommel sign off on assassination? This is where the historical record grows murky, and where Rommel's soldier's honor likely played a role. Most evidence suggests he probably did not approve of killing Hitler outright. He argued that a dead Führer would simply turn Hitler into a martyr, fueling further fanaticism and making peace impossible. Instead, Rommel preferred to handcuff him alive, parade him through the streets of Berlin, and let the German people see the man behind the curtain, stripped of his mythical aura. He believed that exposing Hitler as a deluded warmonger rather than a martyr was the only way to truly break the spell he held over the nation. His son Manfred later confirmed his father's stance, stating that while he supported removing Hitler, he was against assassination. Fate, however, had a cruel twist in store for Rommel. On July 17, 1944, just 3 days before the infamous bomb plot, an RAF Spitfire, likely on a routine patrol, strafed his staff car outside Sainte-Foy de Montgomery in Normandy. It was a random, brutal stroke of bad luck. The attack left him with severe skull fractures, a concussion, and both ears bleeding. He was rushed to a French hospital, incapacitated and out of the loop, while history's fuse burned furiously toward the July 20th bomb. We all know how that ended, don't we? Colonel Klaus von Stauffenberg's briefcase, packed with explosives, was shoved under a conference table at the Wolf's lair. A heavy oak table leg saved Hitler from the full force of the blast. Stauffenberg was executed by firing squad at midnight, and the Gestapo's brutal hunt for conspirators began in earnest. Hundreds were arrested, tortured, and summarily executed. Under the agonizing pressure of interrogation, the suspects, many broken men, started dropping names. Names that sent shivers down the spines of the regime. And one name above all, the one they dreaded most: Rommel. His popularity was immense, and his implication threatened to unravel the entire Nazi narrative. 2 months later, on October 14, 1944, the war had returned to Germany's doorstep, relentlessly chewing through its cities and its people. Rommel, still wearing a neck brace, slowly recovering from his injuries at his home in Herrlingen, was walking his dog when a dark staff car rolled up the drive. Out stepped General Wilhelm Burgdorf and General Ernst Meisel, both high-ranking officers, briefcases clutched grimly in their hands. The air must have been thick, with unspoken dread. Inside the house, they laid out the chilling bargain. The Gestapo had gathered what they called evidence of treason. In Hitler's eyes, it was indisputable. Public trial meant certain hanging, unimaginable disgrace for his family, and possible brutal reprisals against his wife, Lucy, and his son, Manfred. But there was an alternative, an honorable way out. Accept silent suicide, and the Reich would claim he had succumbed to complications from war wounds. In return, his family would receive a full pension, he would be granted a state funeral with full military honors, and, most importantly, his wife and son would be protected. It was an impossible choice, a devil's bargain offered by the very regime he had served, and now sought to overthrow. Rommel, ever the family man, asked for 15 minutes alone with Lucy, his wife of 27 years. They spoke quietly, intimately, behind closed doors. Nobody outside that room will ever truly know the words exchanged, the anguish shared. But when the door finally opened, his face was grim. His decision made. He had chosen the cyanide. He embraced his son, told him he was dying for Germany. And then, with Burgdorf and Meisel waiting outside, he swallowed the capsule. An hour later, the official announcement crackled over German radio. A carefully crafted lie designed to maintain the illusion of the heroic Desert Fox. Field Marshal Rommel has succumbed to grave injuries sustained on the invasion front. Hitler, with breathtaking hypocrisy, ordered a day of national mourning. Flags to half-mast. The works. It was a massive, cynical propaganda spectacle. Only a handful of people knew the truth, that the field marshal's body lay in a hospital morgue, his lips tinted almond from the poison. The doctor who signed the death certificate, Dr. Helmut Dohnhardt, later recalled how a Luger pistol rested silently on his clipboard. Burgdorf's chilling, unspoken reminder to play along, to falsify the cause of death. The regime even filmed the elaborate funeral for newsreels. An empty casket, draped in the Nazi flag with a massive wreath from the Führer himself, front and center. It was a macabre charade, a final, desperate attempt to control the narrative around the man they had forced to kill himself. The cover-up was so effective that the true circumstances of Rommel's death remained largely a secret until after the war, preserving his image as a national hero, even in death. Historians still argue about the haunting what-ifs of Rommel's story. Could a Rommel-led coup, had he not been injured, have truly shortened the war by months? Could it have saved millions of lives? Could it have stopped the Iron Curtain from descending so far west, reshaping the world that came after? Probably not, at least not entirely. The Allies had already agreed on unconditional surrender at Casablanca. The Soviets were advancing relentlessly, their armies unstoppable. Yet Rommel's immense prestige and popularity might have split the Wehrmacht, hastening Germany's collapse. His leadership could have provided a strong, unified military voice for surrender, perhaps preventing some of the most brutal, senseless fighting in the final months. And perhaps most of all, he might have given post-war Germany a rallying figure, a symbol of military honor untainted by the concentration camps and the regime's crimes. Instead, the brave but doomed conspirators became footnotes, and the Desert Fox, stripped of his voice, became a tragic ghost, a symbol of a different path, not taken. The debate continues, a tantalizing glimpse into how one man's choice or fate might have changed history itself. If you're as hooked on these forgotten corners of history as I am, and you love exploring the human stories behind the headlines, then hit that subscribe button for more tales that never quite made it into the textbook. And drop a comment below. How do you see Rommel? Was he a late-blooming resistor? A conscience-stricken soldier who finally saw the light? Or was he a career officer who hedged his bets too long, only turning when defeat stared him squarely in the face? Let me know your thoughts. Rommel's story isn't a simple tale of heroes and villains, and that's precisely why it resonates so deeply. He fought for a criminal regime, basked in its glory, and only turned against it when the war's bitter truth became undeniable. Yet in those final, desperate months, he risked everything: his reputation, his family's safety, his very life, to stop the man he once saluted with unwavering loyalty. It's a testament to the complex moral landscape of war, where even the celebrated can find themselves confronting profound ethical dilemmas.